Hey guys, thank you for stopping by. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And I hope you enjoyed this interview. Welcome back. Yomi Olugbenro is joining me here as the West Africa tax leader at Deloitte. Good to have you join me physically here. We've always been speaking virtually. Welcome to my city.
Good morning, Nancy. Good to be here. Good to
Yes.
be live in the studio with you.
Yes, good. Now, let's start. And I don't know, I guess you were listening earlier to Victor, what he was saying. And a little of Nigeria's highest currency can buy a liter of petrol, and this is crude that we even produce in the country. What are the tax implications really of this recent hike? And there could be possibly even further hikes in the future. What are the tax implications for companies in Nigeria and for government? Fiscal implications.
Yeah, Nancy, it's quite a tough time for the country. And listening to Victor, I just shook my head when he mentioned the fact that the highest denomination can't even buy a liter of PMS. Yeah. So the same way that individuals are feeling the brunt of this, businesses are also under the weight, of the increasing operating expenses. So literally it means as your cost of operations continue to rise, the bottom line shrinks, and therefore the amount of revenue that is available, it's reduced, and so ultimately reduce the tax yield, that you're going to be having. Beyond that, but we also know the impact on, employment, and when there is no employment, there are no, income to be taxed, by individuals. So it goes on and on and on. But from a response, from a fiscal perspective, I think part of the recent development, as you will know, is the economic stabilization bill, that the president just passed to the National Assembly. Part of the intention is that it will provide some bit of relief and to help companies that are holding on to their employees or get some bit of rebate from tariffs and duties from a short-term perspective. But on a more sustainable long-term basis, I think that is the area of the conversation you said we're going to have, which is the fact that we now have new set of tax bills that are being proposed. So the intention is that if this goes through, as based on the recommendation and the conversations we've had, it will help a bit. There will be instances where reliefs get into the law and get passed, provide exemptions, provide rebates, in some cases, deductions, for businesses across different areas. But even more importantly, the efficiency and the effectiveness of administration. Because for me, I think that is perhaps the biggest issue I'm looking towards. So it's tough anywhere to pay taxes, but you want to make the process simple. You want to make sure that you are focusing on where you can get the appropriate yield, and you are in turn providing reliefs to the bottom line, the bottom end of the pyramid. So how do you cater for SMEs while you are still interested in raising revenue? So how do you ensure that the burden is less on them, both in terms of the obligation to pay and the administrative process? So all of that is what I believe from the committee's work, the recommendations of the bill that have now been passed by FEC and submitted to National Assembly for the process of lawmaking. I believe it should help in a way. It's just one of the many levers, quite honestly, that we need to pull, but I'm hoping that we can get it right in that particular area.
I like what you said, that is one of the many levers, is not the only solution, because I'm wondering, I would say that Mr. Olugbenro is part of the Taiwo Yedele committee. I know that you guys have been working for over a year, so it's not only just Taiwo Yedele that is in that committee. There are so many of you. But I'm wondering, as to the haste and the policies that we're seeing from this administration in terms of like hike of petrol, food inflation high, all those issues, I don't want to belabor them again. If it's commensurate to even this tax reform bills that we've seen. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. Yeah, because it seems things are getting worse, and like they say on social media, things are getting worse, as it were. Things are just getting worse. That you're seeing that the rate at which things are getting worse is far more than the rate at which the government is responding, the responses. So this tax bill is fantastic, but how many people will be able to get the benefit from this? That is assuming businesses don't even die before this. I hope you understand what I'm saying in terms of weighing policies. And that was why I mentioned earlier on about sequencing. And there needs to be an economist that is on President Tinubu's team. I know he has a PECC people. I don't know after the announcement if they've met, to be able to weigh, if we do this, what are the consequences? Yeah. Or whether I'm just on my own thinking.
Nancy, I totally agree with you. If you observe what's going on with the polity, you will ask critical questions about the coordination.
Yeah, exactly.
You will ask questions about the sequencing. You will ask questions about the veracity of some of the issues and the measures being taken. I mean, the way I sometimes look at some of the policies, that is being unleashed at the country is this. So the Nigerian situation appeared to be a case of someone that have, a cancerous, situation that needs surgery, or a different kind of ailment that has become so bad that only a surgery, will remediate it. Now, we all agree that there has to be a surgery. Now, but if you're going to take a patient that is almost on a lifeline, almost dying through a surgical process, you must provide anesthesia. You must ensure that the process is as painless as possible, or at least how do you want to manage the post-surgery? From the look of things, we agree that some of those surgical procedures needs to be taken, but I'm not sure the anesthesia. The pain management process is robust enough to ensure that the patient actually doesn't die, through the process of surgery. So that's what I think it's happening. I wouldn't say that the tax reform will change or will remove all of the problem that we're facing, but at least what you don't want to have is a situation where taxation continues to be another pain point, So what can we do to at least lessen the pressure from that side? So that's why I said it's one positive area, but perhaps just one out of many levers. And in any event, we are still just at the point of, having the bills being reviewed by the National Assembly. We don't even have the full, copies of the bill in circulation yet. So it's going to be quite a lengthy process. But I'm hoping that the National Assembly, because of the wide consultation that has happened up until now, we expedite the process, and we will ensure that these bills, go through the processes on time, and then we can begin to see how to take benefit of it.
Can you speak to Ross about these 4 tax reform bills, and let's see how you can break them down? What specific economic challenges they intend to address? The mechanisms also within these bills that we're seeing currently at NAS, how they will foster a conducive environment for business. The other one, I know I'm putting it together.
That's fine. That's fine.
Because I'm looking at our time.
All right.
It's one of the bills proposes renaming FIRS into Nigeria Revenue Service. So I'm actually wondering what's the significance of the renaming and how it will affect the operations and objectives of the agency. Does a name change actually matter?
What does it? Yeah. No. Thanks, Nancy, for the question. So, like you said, there are quite a lot of challenges that, we talk about, both from a taxpayer's perspective, from the practitioner, from the administrators. On the one hand, we talk about the fact that there is a challenge with multiplicity of taxes in Nigeria. So many tax laws, so many taxes. Some of them don't even have, a formal regulation, a formal law. So we have multiplicity of taxes. We have multiplicity of tax agencies. We have low, yield, from those collections, despite the fact that we have, multiplicity of taxes. And then taxpayers complain quite a lot about the fact that these tax laws are outdated. I mean, some of the most recent tax laws that we have in the country are as old as 1993, and those are the more recent ones, that we have. So how do we deal with the issue of, reducing the number of taxes, reducing the number of agencies, simplifying the process, modernize the system of operation? That's what has come through with the recommendation that has now that's now been put together in the bill. So the first one, for example, we're going to be having new set of tax laws for company taxation, income, personal income taxation, VAT. All of the existing tax laws that we have in the country is going to be changed and consolidated into a single Nigerian tax law. That's one of the 4 bills. So there is a Nigerian tax bill. What that law will do is consolidate all of the taxes. All right. You remember that we have several finance acts, that have come. Yes. So regulations here and there. So you have different. So we don't have a single pocket of truth for all of the Nigerian tax law. So we have one Nigerian tax bill that, when passed, becomes the Nigerian tax law. So that's where it's going to be the reference point for every tax laws they're looking for in Nigeria. That's the first one. And then the second one, you said, the FIRS Establishment Act, which was the one that, gave birth to the Federal Inland Revenue Services, is going to be repealed, and a new law, Nigerian Revenue Services Law, will then be promulgated. Now, it looks like just a name change. But even the change of name itself is fundamental, because part of the challenge we have within the fiscal space is the assumption that the FIRS is a tax revenue agent to the federal government. So why are you collecting VAT? Why are you collecting custom? Why are you collecting some taxes that are supposed to be shared across the federation? So the Nigerian Revenue Services, a new body, will then be the organ that will collect taxes for the entire federation. So it's no longer seen as an agency of federal government. And you will see the change from tax to revenue, because every other revenue that's supposed to accrue to the federation can then be overseen by this single tax body, and then there will be mechanism for how that revenue is shared across all of the tiers of government.
Will it
so
take away
that's the
other
second one.
Yes, sorry to cut you short.
Yes.
Will it take away other agencies that also collect revenue for the government?
It is
so the Nigerian Revenue Service, I guess you guys patterned it over towards England. That is UK. They have the HM Revenue Service. Yes. Will it take away the likes of customs and everybody? So will there be one pool where everything goes?
So the expectation will be that these agencies will focus on their core mandate, and then the aspect of revenue collection can be centralized with the Nigerian Revenue Service. So if your role is law enforcement, go and enforce the law. If your role is to protect the border, go and protect the border. But all the powers relating to collecting revenue on behalf of the government will then be consolidated in the Nigerian Revenue Service. So there's efficiency, there's coordination. You remove the possibility of a taxpayer coming to FIRS to say, I bought this machine for ₦1 billion, but when you are talking to the custom, you say, I bought it for 200 million naira, because you want to reduce the duty that is payable. So among many other things, but more importantly, it's elimination of the multiplicity of agencies that come to taxpayers to demand for taxes, and and all of that.
Those agencies collect cost of collection.
Absolutely. And
FIRS gets cost of collection. Customs gets cost of collection.
Exactly.
I think earlier on this week I mentioned about 600 or 500 and something billion cost of collection among like 4 agencies.
So there's leakage. There's
what am I doing here? Let me go and be working there.
So that's the second. That's the second one. We also do have the tax administration bill. Which will then kind of consolidate the assessment, collection, dispute mechanism, and all of that for the taxes. And then the Joint Tax Board also, you have a new, have the Joint Revenue Board, so that the focus isn't just tax, it's about revenue, and the power also enhanced. So essentially, what this new set of bills is going to do is to change completely all of the tax regulations or tax laws, that be it the Establishment Act or the various charging laws or the administration, aspect of taxes.
So let's talk about the Tax Appeal Tribunal, and I'm looking at our time, and the Office of the Tax Ombudsman. How do these bodies, of course, differ from each other in terms of dispute resolution and moving forward? Because there's an ombudsman, there's also a tax appeal tribunal. Then you talked about the revenue board, isn't it? Yes, the joint revenue board. How will this board operate, and what are the benefits in terms of centralizing tax coordination?
Right.
Now.
Yeah. You know that we currently do have all of these agencies or body that you spoke about. We currently do have them. So we have the Joint Tax Board, whose role primarily is to ensure that there's coordination, among all of the tiers, all of the states' internal revenue services or the state government, because we only have one single personal income tax law, but it's being administered by different states. So that's what part of what the Joint Tax Board was doing. Now, so the change is essentially one to realign with the fact that we are moving from just a focus on tax to revenue. So you're talking of the Joint Revenue Board rather than the Joint Tax Board. So it's an enhancement of what the JTB was doing. And it's also expected that part of the proposal is that as we digitize the system and bring in data for tax, we will have a body at the center who isn't the one responsible for collection, like the revenue services, that can then warehouse this data, link with the various agencies of government, and ensure that we can optimize data. Now, that responsibility is different from what the Tax Appeal Tribunal does. We currently have the Tax Appeal Tribunal, and you remember, this was part of the initiative to say, look, to expedite the process of adjudication on taxes, let's have a special purpose court, all right, to look at tax dispute. That's what the Tax Appeal Tribunal is doing. Now, with the overhaul of all of the existing tax regulations, we need to bring that under the new regulation, or the new law that is being formed. All right, and then the coordination and ensuring that between monetary policy, fiscal policies, budget, the debt management office, there is a coordination. That's what the ombudsman, role would do. So to ensure that there is, so each of them have different kind of power and focus area, but bringing them under a single law will ensure that we minimize overlap and ensure that the conflict that usually will happen when you have different laws, that give birth to each of these agencies can be minimized.
Okay, let's see if I can put in 3 questions before we go, and you have, God help you have about 3 minutes to answer them. And okay, my director is telling me at 2 minutes.
Okay. If
we take a look, what strategies do you think that the federal government needs to employ to be able to ensure uniformity and cooperation with states?
Right.
Especially in the area of the Nigeria Revenue Service. We were in this country, we saw what happened in 2021 when some states were taking they were going to court. The second question is, what mechanisms actually could be in place to monitor and enforce these new tax laws when they come out, so that we prevent the loopholes that we already are seeing? Then the third one is that with this, do you think that it's addressing the evolving economic needs of Nigeria?
Right. So on the first one, in terms of getting the buy-in from the state, I believe one of the strategies is what has already been done, and we only just need to continue with that, which is the consultation. I mean, these bills are output of the Presidential Fiscal and Tax Policy Reform Committee. An extensive amount of time was focused on making sure that the state government, their buy-in is sought and gotten. Because at the end of the day, it's about each of the states wanting to have higher yield for taxes and for revenue in order to be able to administer the cost of governance in their respective states. So with the assurance that consolidating the number of taxes or reducing or eliminating or doing away with many of those multiplicity of tax that doesn't yield so much, with that the state government were able to get buy-in. So that process is what needs to be continued, because I'm sure questions will keep raised even in the process of the regulation. So I believe all of that will continue, but consultation and making sure that you don't see the bill as Ministry of Finance or just the federal government, but ensuring that all of the stakeholders are brought in. That would be quite critical. Then your other 2 questions, if you can just point 1, 2.
The other question is around if these new tax laws would, help evolve. That is, our economy is evolving. So in terms,
exactly. Yeah, actually, that's one of the critical reason or drivers for having to enact new laws, because we're saying the old ones are outdated. They are no longer in tandem with modern business realities. So let's look at the way businesses are done in today's time and ensure that the regulations and the law that are put in place eliminate all of the loopholes as much as possible.
That's the third question.
Yeah, but also more importantly, the process of lawmaking is continuing when it comes to taxation. As you begin the implementation, there has to be an active process of ensuring that you monitor, you evaluate, and you propose amendment and changes as the need arises. So we can't say that this is 2024, we've made the law and we will never, have to amend the laws again. But we start implementation, there will always be gaps, here and there. But the process should be in place to ensure that we monitor, we evaluate, and we propose changes to cover those gaps.
I know we'll continue to break this down. This is just like a peripheral kind of interview to at least tell Nigerians that this happened just a few days ago, and we're trying to see what the National Assembly will come up with. So, Yomi, I'll continue to speak with you, and thank you very much for coming.
Pleasure being here with you.
All right, I've been speaking with Yomi Olugbenro, who is the West Africa tax leader at Deloitte. That's the much we can take on today's edition of the program. Thank you all. I am Nancy Naji. Be the best you can be and be the change you want to see. I'll be here again tomorrow. God willing, the news is up next. Thank you for watching. In case this is your first time watching us, thank you. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, drop your comments as well as like, and most of all, share our content.